Okay, we'll be going live here shortly, just doing a quick check, make sure that everything is working properly. And in this round, what yours truly is going to be doing, welcome back to Average Angler Life, your host, Glenn. And in this case, we're doing the Rio Cast Fishing Podcast, where yours truly is going to be working through the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing, talking specifically of some of the tips that are listed in this fine book. And being that the trout stocking season is just around the corner here in the Texas, Oklahoma area. We got the Blue River going to be stocking here first week in November. So, hey, knock on wood that yours truly is going to be out there. And maybe I might see some of y'all out there. And maybe we might be able to have, some of these tips that are available in the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing. Okay, so I've got it posted right here. I think last time we talked of tips 157 and 158, but just in case, I'm just going to reiterate it just to get us up to date, and then we'll just kind of shift through. And the format that I like doing is I just read through it, talk about it, maybe call out some few things, and then even engage some of y'all in that maybe you guys have maybe a thing or two that you want to throw in there. Okay, so let's start out with tip 157. Pumping for information. Even experienced anglers sometimes have trouble figuring out what trout are eating when several different insects are on the surface. For example, you may observe fish rising amid a huge mayfly hatch, but can't get a hit on what seems a realistic imitation. The dilemma may be the result of a shadow hatch of a smaller insect that for some odd reason has become the center of the fish's attention. In such instances or cases, a suction stomach pup available in most trout shops can be invaluable. Use it carefully so you don't injure the fish, and you'll quickly discover what's on the menu. And speaking of trout pumps, I kind of have one right here. This is one that I keep in my fly fishing vest. Haven't used it too often, but when I have, it has been invaluable. The key thing there is, yes, be careful when you are pumping the fish and that you don't injure it. And then key thing there, once you get everything out and you kind of squeeze and let go and you take a look at what's in there, you'll be surprised what you'll find. A lot of times when I'm thinking I got the right pattern, next thing you know, there's a little midge chromatid pattern that, hey, size as well as color tells me I should be using something else. Okay, so keep that in your back pocket, and I believe I'll give that one a thumbs up on the tip 157, pumping for information. Okay, let's go on to tip 158, dishing up the facts. Suppose you can't catch that first fish to perform a stomach scrutiny. Many anglers carry a portable seine so they can take a quick surface census. Lefty Cray, noted for his clever ideas, cites a handy alternative. Cut out the bottom from an ordinary soap dish and replace it with a fine mesh wire. When you put it in the water, insects will collect in the mesh for easy. Let me flip over here. Identification. You can keep them available for later inspection by simply closing the lid. Okay, so, hey, yours truly, I haven't used a soap box. I have used, one of those little green trout net, or not trout nets, aquarium nets, the bigger size one that I've had for like guppy and goldfish. I've had that in my foul weather pocket that goes on the back of your fly vest, and I have taken advantage of that when I'm not able to catch a fish and kind of shift over and use that net and kind of run it through the water and see what else you have there. Okay, so that was tip 158. Let me go back 158, dishing up the facts. Just a suggestion from the late Lefty Cray, indicating that he uses a soapbox with a fine mesh wire to do double duty, as yours truly does with an aquarium net. Okay, next one, 159, quick change artists. In the same vein, one of the most vital elements of success rests with liability or the ability to switch flies or even make a complete adjustment in tactics. When conditions turn on streams, conditions rarely stay the same for long. Hatches come and go, trout move from one insect to another, focus changes from top to bottom. Those moments when fish are feeding aggressively are precious. Stay alert and be ready to make a quick transformation right along with the trout. Hey, speaking of quick transportation or transformation and being able to make that adjustment, it doesn't happen with just trout. Yours truly was out there fishing Denison Dam in the kayak, doing a little kayak one-handed spey fly fishing. And one moment I was fishing and they wanted that fast retrieve. Just bring in that, I call it the Denison Dam limit buster. Just come in fast and bring it in and just kind of do that long strip strike or strip retrieve, and they were hitting it. And then for some reason, just out of the blue, it stopped. And I had to do this other change in the retrieve where I would do a long pull pause, and they were waiting until that fly kind of went dead in the water and kind of just suspended there. And then that's when they were hitting it. And then next thing you know, they switched back again. They wanted that faster retrieve. So I believe that's what tip 159 was calling out. Quick change artists, be ready to adjust. I think is what they're really calling it out, especially when you're on a trout stream. I know maybe some of y'all have experienced it where, like in the case of the Blue River, when there's a hatch of this real microscopic fly, little midge. So what happens is when the temperature drops below freezing, you're fishing away, and then as it starts rising in temperature and goes above freezing, this hatch happens. Very microscopic little larvae midge thing with little, I call it the black Dacron tying thread midge on a size 20, size 22 hook with little strip of antron, little thread of antron on its back to give it like a little bubble deal. And that is what is mimicking this thing that is hatching. And you won't see it. It's almost invisible at times. Okay? The dead giveaway is you'll see these hundreds of trout at times sitting there just kind of slurping away just under the surface. Can't really see what they're eating, but they're just kind of slurping away. Well, grab you one of those stomach pumps, or in the case of that aquarium net or that lefty cray soap box with the fine mesh, and you quickly go through there, you'll see this little tiny bit, size 20, size 22. And the key thing there is it happens below freezing temperatures, and then as the temperature increases, that increase or that rise in temperature is causing these guys to start hatching. All right, so yeah, you gotta be ready. All right, let's go on to the next one. 160. Again, this is the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing. Yours truly tends to read it throughout the seasons and whatnot, but I usually circle back, especially that special time of year when we're getting ready to go into the trout stocking season. In this case, I'm looking at the calendar. November 1 is just around the corner. I believe that we may be seeing some trout being stocked over there in our local waters. In this case, I'm in Texas, but the Blue River is just an hour, 45-minute away drive, less than 2 hour, maybe an hour and a half, if you know what I mean. And you'll have an opportunity to do some nice fly fishing, if not fishing for some trout, stock trout. Okay? All right. So with that said, 160. Time is fish. Tournament fishermen know the supreme value of time. Bass pros keep several rods loaded with a wide variety of lures, switching from one to the next until they find what's working. They make every minute count. These options generally aren't available to fly fishermen, but there are ways to reduce annoying downtime, such as tangles with multiple fly rigs that steal long minutes, and in the case of float fishing, hundreds of yards of precious water. The solution: prepare several such rigs in advance. When you get a snarl, quickly snip off the offending tippet and tie on another. A quick one, not processed. The extra can be wrapped neatly on a piece of cardboard inside a plastic zipper bag. You'll catch more fish and, as important, avoid a lot of mental anguish. Well, 160, time is fish. Well, guess what? I do agree with that. And oh, by the way, I kind of learned something when I took up center pin fishing. There's this deal where I have some pre-rigged lures, hooks, baits, whatnot, so that when I switch from one setup to the other, I just take it off one. It's a little micro snap swivel. I can undo it and switch out the rig that quickly. Well, similar to that, when you're fly fishing, you can do the same thing where, let's say you break off a rig, a tandem rig, maybe, you know, maybe a Euro nymph rig and whatnot. You already have one pre-tied so that you can quickly get back in the game. All right. And then speaking of that, there are some, well, barrel knot or blood knot workarounds or hacks that I've been seeing. I quickly adopted one where, well, you have to see the video. It's online somewhere, but basically what it does is it allows you to tie a blood knot, even though your hands are freezing cold this coming winter season, and you can quickly get back in the game by using this method. So do check it out. It's online somewhere. All right. Let's go on to the next one. 161. All right, let's try this one. The corset connection. 161. God never made an insect with rubber legs. Fly tires, of course, do, and trout just eat them up. The reason is that most fish are titillated by anything bite-sized that exudes life. Years ago, someone made a fly wiggly and jiggly by using rubber fibers from those elastic devices used to shape women's figures. Thus, the girdle bug was born. Magic tires have since contrived to attach rubber legs to all sorts of patterns, almost always with satisfactory results. There's a general message here about attracting fish, particularly with larger flies. You'll seldom go wrong if you make a fly look alive. Like a housecook teased with a piece of yarn, trout can't resist the tantalizing action of rubber legs presented with just the right twitch. The visibility of white rubber also makes this a particularly effective pattern in murky water. Well, guilty here. I definitely am a proponent of the rubbery, twitchy, leggy thing. I use it for the foam grasshoppers and foam spiders that I use targeting some of the bluegill and bass in yours truly area. But oh, by the way, Pat's rubber leg, if you know what I mean, that one has been, it uses these real tiny micro legs. And I like the ones, I'll tie them myself, but I like the ones that are tied by Zach Flatt. He's a former resident of Oklahoma, but has since moved to New Mexico, guiding the in New Mexico. But he makes this Pat's rubber leg that is a killer. Usually when the temperatures are brutally cold in the dead of winter and the trout, especially at the blue, are just kind of sitting there waiting, not really wanting to hit anything, you get this thing just kind of dead drifting in front of them with barely any movement, but those little tantalizing micro legs are out there and they're getting bit. So, hey, keep that in your back pocket. Keep some Pat's rubber legs out there handy, and it ties in well with tip 161, the corset connection, alluding to the time when they would use corsets and the little rubbery stuff, I guess, that they had in there. All right. Take a little sip break here. I got a little adult beverage here, if you know what I mean. Okay, let's go on to 162. The early fly gets eaten. Crowding is a reality when fishing desirable public waters these days, which makes arriving early good strategy under any circumstance. An even better idea. With a brain the size of a pea, a trout isn't the brightest creature on the planet, but trout do have the ability to learn from the constant intrusions in their environment. After being exposed to parades of anglers and assorted flies, occasional stings in the mouth from those flies, fish become far less likely to bite. There's a real advantage in getting to the water ahead of the crowds. You'll also find a stealth benefit from low light conditions in the early morning. Trout are almost are also more likely to look up for a fly without a bright late morning sun beaming into their eyes. Hey, again, I have to agree with this one. Early is better, especially to avoid the crowds, and at the same time, getting in there fresh when the trout haven't really been presented much opportunities to, well, inspect the different fishing flies and baits that are going by. So take advantage of that. All right. Okay, through the looking glass. Tips 163 from the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing. Most fishers know the value of polarized glasses and penetrating surface glare to spot fish. To use those glasses most efficiently, it helps to develop an understanding of where the trout are likely to be. That way, you spend less time staring into the blank water. Less understood is the benefit to be gained from binoculars in seeing subtle rise, rings, and other movements from distant vantage points, such as high embankments. Not only can a compact set of binoculars be valuable fishing aid, it can also help you better enjoy viewing wildlife along the stream. Okay, yeah, I'm good with that one. I mean, I carried binoculars on me when I did a lot of hunting way back, but I haven't really carried binoculars when I'm out fishing. So that one, maybe not. I don't know. Especially since you got phones now and you can kind of zoom in that matter. Anyways, 163. I'm kind of so-so about that one. All right, let's go to 164. Lightening the load. Consider the current proliferation of flies. It isn't all that far-fetched to suggest that a well-supplied angler might need to rent a forklift to transport all his boxes to the water. That's a good one. Never have there been so many fine flies to entice both fish and fishermen. Anyone with a bit of imagination and a fat wallet can load up in a hurry. Which basic patterns do we choose? The traditional Adams present most dark-colored mayflies. A pale morning dawn pattern takes care of the lighter ones. Elk hair caddis in various sizes and shades cover the water for that species. Beneath the surface, a gold rib hare's ear nymph represents a variety of insects. Add a pheasant tail to mimic mayflies, a caddis larvae, caddis emerger, and various sizes of stoneflies, and you've got what you need for most situations. An assortment of attractor patterns should handle the rest. So, okay, yeah, there are some of these basic patterns, some of these basic ones that they call out. Traditional Adams, the pale morning dawn, those are good. Elk hair caddis, yeah, yes, keep those handy. I would also say keep a muddler minnow handy, maybe a smaller size, not the bigger size like if you're going for bass and whatnot, but when you're targeting some of these stock trout, especially on the blue, a size 12, a size 14 muddler minnow can make or break a particular day. Keeping in mind there was one year that I went fishing over there at the catch and release section on the Blue River, which is the upper part of the Blue River where they do stock trout, and all they wanted was the muddler minnow. I tried every single fly in my fly box, but that muddler minnow was the only thing they wanted. So do keep them in your fly box. On top of that, gold rib hare's ear nymph, yes, keep that in there. Let's see, pheasant tail, yes. There's been times, especially when I'm working one particular set of a run where there's a bunch of these rocks and pools and whatnot. There's this one pool that I recall just over there at the low water crossing that if you put your pheasant tail nymph and you got the right drift, the right presentation, you're going to get bit. And at times there'll be 20, 30 of these trout just kind of lurking in this little pool, and they are not hitting anything until you get that dead drift pheasant tail going by them. All right. So that's another good one to keep in mind. Gold rib, pheasant tail. I do suggest, in this case, to have some midges. The zebra midge, be it red or black. Maybe white also. I kind of fish them more of a tandem rig style where I have a streamer hook or a streamer fly followed by the midge. So that's another one to keep in your back pocket, okay? All right. Let's go on. 165, behind the mask. I wonder what that's about, behind the mask. Interesting. Take a break here. Little adult beverage, folks. Come on, we're talking fly fishing. We can't get too serious here. Come on, join me. tastiness. Okay, 165, behind the mask. One of the most challenging situations in fly fishing occurs when multiple hatches are in progress of the same pieces of water. The dreaded masking hatch occurs when it appears that trout are rising greedily to a certain insect, usually the most visible of the lot, when they're actually eating something else. I know that feeling. Okay, an experienced angler first examines the rise form, which typically will be splashy for caddisflies or midges and more subtle for mayflies. With time and observation, angler learns to detect which stage of an emerging insect is drawing the most attention. Hey, keeping that in your back pocket here. Just think of it as if they are hitting on the surface, all splashy. Are they really striking on the surface, or do you actually see them kind of slurping something? All right, so there may be this hatch going on, bugs flying about, but they're just kind of slurping away, and they're actually getting those little midges that are just kind of getting ready to hatch, not actually broken the surface, but just under, an emergent, they say you call it. Okay, I think that's all it's doing. It's just watch for that difference. Okay, so you see a lot of bugs flying about, and they are splashing and doing that thing. Okay, fine. But if you see a bunch of bugs flying about and they're not really splashing, they're slurping or kind of purposing and kind of doing stuff, maybe take a look at what else may be hatching at that time. All right, good call out. Good call out. 165. Okay, 166. Cure for the muddy water blues. Many fly fishermen pack it in when rivers run high and off color during runoff following a heavy rain. Instead, they'd be better served to view this as an opportunity. Trout don't stop eating when the water rises. Far from it. High water often carries an abundance of food, including worms and insects dislodged from the flow. Fish aren't picky about what they eat during such times. They also make faster decisions in dirty water and thus are easier to catch. In muddy water, try a streamer, large stonefly, or something offbeat and splashy such as rubber leg pattern. This could be the time to catch the biggest fish of the season. Hey, I have to admit, I have seen some really good catches in that high water pattern where it's off color, muddy, and whatnot. And like it's saying, kind of presents something that is high vis. I know in another case where I fished a particular section over there on the Trinity here in Dallas or in Fort Worth, Texas, when they stocked it for GRWD Fly Fest with these nice sized bruiser trout. What was working was I had set a tractor pattern. In this case, just I call it a San Juan worm ball. Okay, so it was a bunch of these chenille San Juan worms mimicking not one but 3 or 4, kind of mushed in the water, kind of rolling with the current, and then that was the lead fly, more of an attractant, saying, hey, there's something there. And then streaming behind it, I had a, what was it? Prince Nymph, okay, with that high-vis white goose biot on its back. And guess what? They were striking readily. I ended up limbing out, and it was a fun time. And most of the strikes that I got were not on the San Juan worm ball, all on that Prince Nymph. Okay, let's go on to the next one. 167, reconnecting with an old friend. All right, let me see. Let's do a quick time check. Let's see, 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock Central. Holy cow. How long have we been going here? I don't have anything indicating how long we've been going, but hey, I got time. It's a Saturday. We got some rain coming in again, so hey, if I can't go fishing, I can certainly talk fishing. All right, and in this case, I've got a little help because I've got the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing. All right. Okay, 167, reconnecting with an old friend. In our modern infatuation with all the various applications of NIMS, excuse me, we've neglected a method that long formed the bedrock of fly fishing, the traditional wet fly. As it imitates the merging form of many insects, remains one of the most effective techniques for attracting aggressive trout hunting in the middle depths. Cast soft hackle patterns cording downstream with enough weight to sink them. Let the fly work through the prime holding spots with a series of lifts that imitate an insect swimming or drifting toward the surface. At the end of the drift, let the fly hang briefly in the current. Don't be afraid to try a double fly hook rig or double fly rig, aka tandem rig, with this method. Perhaps using a soft hackle wet behind a conventional nymph to imitate two different kinds of insects. Guilty, guilty, guilty. I do that. All right. Soft hackles are awesome. In fact, I keep a whole whatever. I forgot what feather thing it is, but I've got one of those, and I usually use it to make soft hackles as well as tenkara flies, where you just kind of do the reverse hackle. Yeah. Guilty, guilty, guilty. I do that. All right. 168. Wake up call. You see the insects on the water, but every dry fly you choose in an attempt to match the hatch is met with a refusal. First you're puzzled, then frustrated, then dejected. Don't get mad, get even. As an instrument of your revenge, try an attractor. This can be a large dry fly, a streamer, even a big nymph. The notion is to offer the trout an attention getter. That's impossible to ignore. Besides, the switch to larger flies generally make things easier and more fun. Not every trout will take the come on, but the tactic will often attract enough trout to turn a slow day into a success. Then you won't feel frustrated anymore. All right, cool. What do I say about that? I keep what I call the Patriot dry fly, which is a big dry fly with gaudy colors, red, white, and blue. And I use that with a ton of floatant. And I will fish it as a strike indicator as well as a fly with another fly, sort of a tandem rigged, fished wet under it. And there's been many times where I've got this Patriot fly, high vis, getting struck, but at the same time I'm getting consistent bites on that secondary fly, the trailing nymph or midge. The key there also is, at times when it hits that water, the trout are kind of reacting to that sound, going, hey, what's up with that? And they look, and then they see, okay, I see it. What's that over here? And next thing you know, they're striking your trailing fly. So, yeah. Do that. All right, let me call the, let's see, 168, wake up call. And that tip 168, wake up call, put a big fly on there. All right, bear with me. My fancy technical gear here, it'll just shut off on its own, so I got to kind of click on it here every once in a while to get me back in. All right. Let me do a little focus here. All right. Okay, so yeah, I've got a lot of gear when it comes to cameras and whatnot, but a lot of it is secondhand. Like this one that I'm using right here right now is the SL1 Rebel that I got from KEH online, and yeah, way back it was like a $700, $800, $900 or whatever camera. I got it for $150. Yeah, so hey, it works. All right. Okay, let's go on to tip 169, the living fly. Wayne Maka, a bamboo rod designer from Montana, devised a large floating fly whose most visible feature is a closed-cell foam body for maximum flotation. There's nothing startling about this, as fly tyers have been using foam for years. Maka also adds rubber legs, which is nothing special either. What Maka does next is really the creative part. He ties in, of all things, a marabou wing and tail. An odd combination for a surface fly. The result is a floater with a tantalizing motion that moves like an organism. It can be twitched and teased for exceptionally long drifts along a tight bank or extended current seams. With a play on words, Maka calls his creation the serial killer. As what it imitates, he doesn't hesitate to reply, bait. He says, lesson, dry fly, dead drifts are good. Something looks alive can even be better. All right, so I've not tried this. In fact, I'm kind of curious about it. I am curious about it. I'm going to write it down. All right, let's go back and see what he says here. Okay, so he's tying a fly with a closed cell foam body. Okay, Let's call it out. Large floating fly. Okay, so large and floating. Closed cell foam. Okay. Excuse me. Let's see. Yeah, it's rubber legs. Okay, so it's going to have rubber legs. I don't see anything about what size hook he's using, but we can just kind of wing it from there. And then he adds a marabou wing. Okay, so marabou wing. And tail. Okay, and it's fished on the surface. There's no picture, but I'm kind of getting a little visual on this. All right, let's see. Okay, and it's twitched and teased for long drifts, and he calls it the serial killer. Huh. All right, let's call it the serial killer too, but we'll just do variants since I'm kind of guessing. All right, I think yours truly is going to maybe try tying one of these. Maybe a little hard to see that. Yeah, a little bit hard. I'll call it out. Okay. Large, floating, closed cell foam, has rubber legs, marabou wing and tail. Okay, and it's fished on the surface. Okay. We'll make something, all right? And we'll make it and try it. And from what I'm guessing, it sounds like it's more of a drift, a dead drift, long drift, and it's causing something to elicit a strike from the trout. All right, cool. All right. Shoot, let me put that in my book to make sure that I don't forget, okay? Because that one is one to definitely try. All right, we're learning a lot from the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing. Holy cow, I've read this thing multiple times. It's just, well, I keep forgetting stuff too. Could be too much adult beverage. Tasty. All right, 170, the invisible caddis. More than any other important aquatic insect, caddis flies spend very little time on the surface. Common to virtually every river or lake, these insects emerge quickly, break the surface in a burst, and then are gone. Most feeding activity during caddis hatches takes place on the emerging pupae. In their enthusiasm to catch the rapidly moving pupae, trout often make splashes on the surface or even leap into the air. This gives the appearance that fish are rising the dry flies when in fact no adult flies are on the water. At this stage, it's far important to imitate this upward movement of the pupae than to dabble in the adult flies that can be seen flying about, but are seldom involved in the feeding sequence. Trout that follow emerging caddis to the surface can be tempted by skittering a high-floating dry fly pattern made or deer pattern made of deer or elk hair across the surface, but the subsurface tactic is going to catch you more fish in the long run. Wow, I'm going to have to remember this. Okay, so it's an emergent that is coming up to the surface. These guys are pounding at it, in fact, bursting to the surface, but they're not actually feeding on the adult stage. They're actually feeding on that pre-emergent. So, ooh. Well, that's fishing. You're just going to have to play it by ear. If you see these guys jumping about and you don't see, or you're not getting any hits on that skittering, high-floating dry fly, then maybe switch to an emergent just in case. Or better yet, do a tandem rig. Put that high-floating dry fly and then have that little floating emergent dealie or sinking pre-emergent down below and let the fish decide. Yeah, let's do that. All right, cool. All right, 171. Cold water cure, brighten up. All right, let's see what this one has to say. Fish are cold-blooded with a metabolism that tightly linked to temperature. This means that they don't eat much or react as quickly when the water is extremely cold. Successful anglers stand ready to offer a little help. One way to do this is to slow down the drift, using extra weight or line manipulation to make the fly move slightly slower than the current. Another is choose a more visible fly that trout can see coming a little sooner. Apart from helping a fly sink, this is one of the primary benefits of bead heads. Flies that incorporate bright metal or glass beads work well all year, but are particularly effective during the winter. Well, lo and behold, I've got it in writing. That explains a lot of times where I'll be fishing one pattern that does not have that bead head versus another pattern that does, and I'm getting more on the other. Okay, well, there goes tip 171. Keep that in your back pocket. Little visibility come winter time. All right, 172. Damsels in distress. Perhaps this has happened to you. You are fishing a quiet lake or pond and you're pushed out near the tops of your waders to make that hero cast to where you think the trout are. At some point in this process, you become aware that the trout are swirling behind you, between you, and the shore. Chances are you've waded smack into the middle of an emergence of damselflies, among the most common, perhaps least utilized aquatic insect species. We all know about these fairy-winged insects that flit around the margins of still water, but few anglers realize the importance they play in the diet of trout and sensational action they can provide. We occasionally see trout leaping for the fluttering adults. Indeed, an imitation of a winged damsel sometimes prompts explosive strikes from trout keyed to the surface, but it's the subsurface of migration of the emergers that holds the key to the more enduring success. A bit of etymology is in order. A member of same order as dragonflies, damsels spend most of their lives as developing nymphs amid aquatic vegetation, still or slow-moving water. When a biological signal arrives, usually in May and early June, they begin a swift, deliberate migration towards shore. Using flagella in their tails, which also contains the gills, they wiggle rapidly toward the closest object connected to the surface, shed their exoskeleton, and emerge in the flight form. It's the jaunt to shore that's so important to anglers. Trout congregate in the shallows to intercept these 2-inch-long insects, often becoming absolute fools for imitation, strip briskly to imitate the erratic pattern of the natural. Damsel emergers come in 2 basic colors, olive and brown. Make sure you always have some in your fly box. Wow, that was a long passage. Okay, what did I get away from it? Olive and brown. 2-inch long insects. And I think it's saying be careful about imitating the erratic path of the natural. Okay, we'll keep that in our back pocket. Let's just check that just in case, though. Okay, chances are, when you plant, etymology, blah, blah, wiggle to the surface. Yeah. Olive and brown. Imitate the erratic path. And it's between the shallows where they're congregating for these 2-inch long insects. Okay. I'm good with that. So that kind of reminds me the strip retrieve, just little short pulls, pop, 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 that might be it also. All right, 173, seeing double. Despite the increased likelihood of tangles and snarls, double or even triple nymph rigs are gaining popularity. Why? Because you just doubled or tripled the chances that you have something tied to your line a fish might try at. Okay. The standard reasoning is to use large attractor fly, usually weighted closest to the fly line. Allow for at least a 9-inch spacing to your trailer fly, a smaller nymph that imitates that prevailing insect. A split shot or 2 above the lead fly completes the rig. Typically, a fish moves on the attractor, and if that proves unsatisfactory, switches to the trailer. Don't despair about casting this catastrophic catastrophe in waiting. It can be done. Avoid flinging the leader and all its accoutrements completely, turn over and land in straight line on the water. Wow, it almost reminds me of the duck, the chuck and duck retrieve when you're casting some of those big strike indicators and these huge flies. Holy cow! I think all that's really telling you is just use more than one fly at times. All right. 174, color coding. How fish see colors is primarily affected by the amount of light entering the water. The less light, the less visible some colors become. The shortest waves, blue and green, are absorbed slowly, while reds are absorbed quickly. As a rule, choose blue and green for deep water bait fish patterns or in areas where the water is murky. Also consider that red is the most visible and in some cases most vital color for aggressive predators feeding in shallow water. Many say that red closely imitates the flared gills of an alarmed bait fish, which can trigger a fast response from feeding trout. I have to admit that having red does make a difference in some cases, or many cases, when it comes to hooking up with fish in general. And I do recall the Lefty Deceiver that includes a little red little accoutrement, little strands, I believe, of deer hair or flashaboo or crystal something flash to give it a little redness, bloodiness, I guess, or that flaring gill. Hey, there's nothing wrong with having a little red on your lure. In this case, fly. All right, so let's go with 175. Get the red in. Some years ago, noted author and angler Robert H. Boyle conducted an experiment in which the repeatedly introduced minnows in a sizable aquarium containing largemouth bass. Half were ordinary silver shiners. The other half were shiners that had been dyed red. Through repeated tests, the bass demonstrated a profound preference for the crimson minnows. We know no similar tests for salmonids, but it helps explain why so many successful fly patterns contains a splash of red. Wow, interesting. All right, let's keep going. All right, big takeaway there. Throw in some red on your fly. Throw in some red on your lure. Just give it a try. It probably will increase your hookup rate. I'm almost done with the adult beverage. I may have to shut this down here soon. All right, let's do 167 or 176 and 177. I believe we'll call it at this point. All right. For those that did join, really appreciate you guys joining. If you do have any questions, call out, certainly put it in the chat. If you see this later, definitely just add in the comments. I monitor all the comments that are coming into the channel. Average Angler Life channel, yours truly, Glenn. Just kind of, well, avid fisherman, amateur fisherman, average fisherman, hoping to, hey, maybe you might be able to catch a fish or two by learning by my trials and errors. All right, so let's get back. 176, Sharpie thinking. Along the lines of adapting flies on the move and in the river, guide John Flick of Durango, Colorado often carries a black Sharpie, permanent marker in his pocket when he finds that a tan caddis are overmatched by black caddis on the river, for example. A few strokes of the pin changes the fly's color and puts him right in the game. A few dabs on a PMD can also make the mayfly pattern something completely different. Well, that's cool to know. I think there was I recall way back when Bass Pro Shop had come up with a set of lures that were white, just blanks basically. And then they gave you these little Sharpie color things, and you could just kind of color it to whatever pattern you needed to for what you were targeting or for those conditions. So basically you had a blank set of lures and you had a whole bunch of different things that you could color it with. Well, hence in this case, you're just using a black Sharpie to make something darker. Hey, I think it's the same concept. Doesn't hurt to have a little Sharpie in there. Yours truly mainly has a Sharpie when I'm out kayak fishing, jug lining, because I need to write the numbers onto my jugs. But other than that, I don't recall having a Sharpie in my fly vest. I do keep a Sharpie in my pickup truck though. So hey, I'm covered. All right, 177, love ants and beetles. The most overlooked and underloved dry flies in the world are ants and beetle patterns. I don't know why this is, as you'll find ants and beetles are on almost any decent trout river in the world, and trout love eating them. If you're worried about not being able to, if you're not worried about not being able to see a small black beetle or ant on the water, use a pattern with a red, white, or orange post or patch on its back to make it more visible. Failing that, use an attractor fly with your ant or beetle. See the hopper, fish the ant. Okay? Don't neglect to fish ants and beetles, especially when there is no major hatch going on and you see fish suspended in shallow water near the bank or next to structures such as logs and cut banks. Those fish are opportunistic feeders, and odds are they'll hit a well-placed ant or beetle. All right, let me make a note here. 178. This is where I'm going to kind of stop things, and we'll shift over to close things out. Okay, 178 is, we'll pick up again in the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing series in the new channel, the new channel, Average Angler Life, formerly the COAF field team. This is the Real Cast Fishing Podcast. I've got some other stuff kind of linked in there together. But bottom line, really appreciate you guys joining today. It's been a fun go. I can always talk fishing. There was some rain today, so I couldn't go out fishing like I normally would care to. But, well, certainly talk fishing in this case, since we're getting ready for trout stocking season here in the Texas, Oklahoma area. Nothing wrong with brushing up on the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing. All right. Okay. Next time, catch y'all later, and good luck and good fishing.